Good morning. Today we are again taking up D.H. Lawrence's Sons and Lovers, and we are taking up chapter 10. Here we find that a letter has arrived one morning informing that Paul has won another prize for his paintings, and that painting was sold for 20 guineas. Now Paul wants to share the money with his mother. Mrs. Morel is overjoyed and she is filled with pride. And we find that Paul's ambition as an artist, it starts growing up. While we find that Mr. Morel is unhappy with the amount and that he has received after selling that painting, and he remembers and then he laments about William, the eldest son, and he feels that he could have been as successful as Paul by now. When Mr. Jordan invites Paul for dinner, Mrs. Morel then alters William's suit and gives it to him. Paul insists on taking his mother along, and Mrs. Morel, now she can afford to dress well, and we find that the only person that doesn't change in the family is Mr. Morel. Then there is a kind of change in Paul. Now he is no longer a religious as he used to be, and he is more interested in the happenings of the life. And we see Paul trying to convince Mrs. Morel that life and spirituality, they can together be felt and seen in the common people. Mrs. Morel, on the other hand, feels that Paul is acting very snobbish. She does not like his attention that he is showing towards Clara, and she wants Paul to meet young girls of his own age and try to find a girl who is simple and uncomplicated. Paul, on the other hand, does not approve of it. We find as a mother, Mrs. Morel wants Paul to live a happy life, and she senses that he is not paying enough attention on himself, and he's blaming Miriam for this. Even she feels like that. Although now Paul is not spending time with Miriam, we find meanwhile Arthur is settling down. This is how we find him. And he has taken his responsibilities as a father very well now that he and Beatrice both have a baby. Paul has now become friends with a group of young people who are interested in politics, and he has started knowing many people through Clara, who are suffragettes. Once he is given a message to be delivered to Clara, and then he goes to her house, and there he meets her mother, Mrs. Redford, and then he watches Clara and her mother making laces. When he asks that lace making is a hard work, then Clara replies that women a woman's work is always hard. He senses here that Clara could have been happy, but she is not. And probably if she gets her job at Jordan, then the way she feels suffocated might a job might end her misery. Few weeks later, there is a worker who is quitting as she is marrying, and he then asks Clara to take up that job at the factory. We find that she gets the job and she starts working, but she's quite reserved in the factory, and the other girls do not like her. She's seen spending her afternoons with Paul while he paints. But Paul is irritated with her opinions regarding his work, but still feels drawn towards her. Paul senses that she has gained knowledge through association with the women's movement. He also feels that she does not take interest in him and acts superior. Once he sees her reading French and is surprised that she can read another language, but he also finds that she has never acknowledged him and she has tried to ignore him at times, and especially while she is reading the French novel and he is talking to her, but she is not acknowledging him. At workplace, Paul often teases Clara and she is confused as why he is harassing her so much. So we find their relationship developing bit by bit. We also see him pulling her leg by trying to test her knowledge of French, and he jokes about her past. And as soon as he makes a joke about her past, she is offended and he tries to seek her forgiveness. And for that, he brings chocolates, and those chocolates are left in the factory overnight. And next day, when Paul discovers it, he throws them away in front of Clara. But after that, he again buys her chocolate and he gives it to her. And this confuses her even more regarding his behavior. Then we have an incident of both of them going up to the castle, and from there they look down across the town. At this place, he asks her as what is troubling and bothering her, and finds out that she feels left out by the girls in the factory, as their behavior makes her feel like an outsider. In the same week, Clara gives a book of poetry as a present to Paul, and they become friends and they start spending their time walking together and talking. Now, Paul is filled with warmth whenever he is with her, but the thought that he is attracted or drawn towards her has not dawned on him. Mrs. Morel is happy that she does not have to see Miriam very often, although Paul spends time with her too. On the other hand, Miriam is convinced that Paul will come back to her, as she feels that she has a strong connection with him, although he keeps on rejecting her. Clara does not feel jealous regarding Paul and Miriam's relationship. When Paul tries to explain that he wished his relationship was or could have been normal with Miriam, then Clara says that he could have made that relationship work, but he has never tried to love her. This is all for today. Thank you.